This is my range hood that I built and plastered myself. And in this video, I'll show you how to build a plaster range hood. Here's what the basic frame looks like. I used plywood for the sides to make this nice curve. I also got this 2x6 mounted to the wall on both sides, and then this 2x4 that's attached to it to support the base of the hood range. The side plywood is screwed into 2x6 and into the 2x4s, and I got these cross beams that connected the two plywoods together. The base is also made out of the 2x6s as well, and underneath over here I got some 2x4s. And here's what it looks like from the inside. To be honest, there's so many ways to build the frame. Just pick one that works best for you and proceed. If you want to see how I installed the metal duct, check out the link in the description. I have a video for that as well. I finished doing the install of my last 2x4s and made sure they were flush with the curved edge and used a very long wood screw to screw them in. Next, I took some measurements to see how big of a drywall piece I need.
Instead of making a corner here, here's what I want to do. Basically, you take one of these, make a little notch, keep it the same, and that way I can do something like that. Let's try it. So what I need to know is to this corner, I am 6 3/4.
So next, I took my big piece of drywall, marked my measurements where I'll be making the bend. I used the level to mark my lines and realized that I need to do this on the back side. So I flipped it over, marked my center line and 2 outer lines where I'll be making the cuts to make the little groove in the drywall so it can bend nicely as I showed you in the sample piece. And here's what it looks like after doing the cuts. And here's what it looks like after it's nice and cleaned. So let's give it a try. I put the drywall up against my frame and it appears that the bottom fit perfectly, but it looks like I need to do something to make the board curve in the middle section. So what I ended up doing is making 2 more small cuts in the middle. As you can see, the 2 lines here, and I plan to smooth them out with drywall mud later. And here's what it looks like with a bunch of drywall screws in it. Here you can see where I made the cuts, one right here and another one right here to make it curve. Next, I took these plastic corners and started to install them with some drywall screws.
Yeah, I had to go back and forth so it's kind of nice and flush. And then I got to fix this by cutting this up a little bit. See all this sticking out. But other than that, not too bad. Here's a good test you can do. So this is how the knife's going to sit on the corner or on that edge. And then you're going to go down. If it clears, then you'll be fine. But see right here, if it touches, then you gotta fix it.
So I took one of these corners and cut one side off of it so that it looks like this. I'll be using it here as a straight edge. And here's what it looks like after all the edges are installed.
Here's how I did the corner. Not the best, but I think it'll do. And then that's the stuff underneath. Here's the other corner. So if I did this again, one big mistake I did is I should have used flat nails instead of these countersunk. See, the head is countersunk. If that was a flat nail, then it wouldn't bend so much. It would be more flat. But because it's a little countersunk, that's the issue that I'm having. But the good thing is it'll all be covered up because when I put, my knife, it covers it. So like that. So it's not a big deal. So this will work. But ideally, if you're going to be doing this, probably use some nails. Probably be easier. Now that I'm looking at this, the other different thing I should have done was I should have done this first and make it a nice corner, miter corner here to where it's nice rectangular piece. And then did these strips from here all the way up. And that's because it would have been a lot easier to blend this corner when I'm going to be doing the mud versus now it's going to be a little tricky. But that's how you learn. You do it one way you think is best, and then on the next one, you know how to do it better.
I ended up using Proform all-purpose joint compound because I had some left over from the drywall guys. I gave the compound a nice mix and then poured it into my drywall mud pan. It looked a bit dry, so I added a little bit more water and mixed it some more inside my mud pan. Next, I started patching up all the screw holes and doing the corner. Once I did the screw holes, I took a longer putty knife and started adding a significant amount of mud in the corner, basically just working my way down. The side corner I was doing with the bigger knife, but the front, because of the curve, it was easier to apply mud with a smaller putty knife and then use a big one to smooth it out. Here's what it looks like up close. Keep in mind, this is the first coat, so it's just rough. Next, I was doing the front lip I applied a bunch of mud first and then tried to smooth it out. I applied more as necessary. The top corners I had to leave a little extra as it was impossible to make it look like a nice corner while the mud was wet. The idea is to try to form it during the sanding process. I did the same thing to the top corner and applied a bunch of mud and then tried to smooth it out a little bit.
So I ended up putting a small piece here so that way I can close this corner better, and this forgot to do it before trying to mud it. So overall, rough mud is not too bad, but all this weird stuff, I'll have to finish it off second or third time. First coat is done. Here's what it looks like. This is all rough, so I'll be doing it again. I recommend taping this.
This left top corner turned out pretty good, and at the bottom, a bit rough, but I'll fix that on the second round. And here's what it looks like after the first coat. Then, the next day, I took the sanding tool, I think it's about 150 grit, but I don't remember, and started sanding it down. I know it doesn't look great yet, but you gotta trust the process. Then, I used the paintbrush and brushed off all the dust. I also used a damped big yellow sponge to wipe the dust off as well. Here's what it looks like after applying a second coat of drywall mud. Now I gotta wait and sand it again.
So this is what it looks like after sanding the second time. So still small imperfections. Still need to do another skim coat for touch-ups. But overall, taking shape pretty well. And a little bit over here. Bottom one is perfect. But it's getting close to final. So one more and then painting. And here's what it looks like after doing some touch-ups. So I'll let it dry, and tomorrow I'll try to sand it up again, show you what it looks like. Hopefully this is the last time. What it looks like after it was sanded. So little imperfections in the corners, but overall not too bad. One little spot right here and a little spot right here that I gotta touch up. Overall, pretty much ready to go to be painted.
I did one last final sand after touch-ups and brushed it off.
Here's what it looks like after the touch-ups and one more sanding. I think I'm gonna prime it and see what it looks like and then see if I need any more touch-ups. But pretty happy with the way it looks so far. So I think it's ready for painting.
I used this Primer Pro Block from Sherwin-Williams and this small painting roller. I started priming it from the bottom and worked my way to the top.
And here's what it looks like primed. A couple things I don't like still. I can still see these lines right here, where on the edges it's nice and smooth and they kind of blend in, but in the middle you can still see the seams. So I might try to blend them in a little bit more before I do another paint coat. So we'll try that. So here's a couple rows I did with some skim coat. That's what it looks like. It's kind of hard to see. We'll see what that turns out.
And here's what the final results looks like. I was getting tired of recording the same thing over and over again with sanding and then patching up. But basically after patching up the two lines, I sanded them down and primed them and then painted everything in the same color that my cabinets, which is dull white, and I used the semi-gloss finish. I used Sherwin-Williams paint called Captivate for my hood, and that's it. Let me know what you guys think and check out how I installed my kitchen farmhouse sink next.